I hadn't planned to spend the summer back at the house where I used to sleep on the pull-out couch and sneak cookies after midnight. But life, as usual, didn't care about my plans. My summer internship fell through. My roommate decided to sublet our apartment to a couple from San Diego who didn't mind sharing the space. And my parents had just left for 6 weeks in Spain on a trip they'd been planning for years. It was supposed to be fine, temporary. So when my mom suggested I stay with Aunt Rachel, I said yes without thinking too much about it. She wasn't my actual aunt, just my mom's best friend since college. The kind of woman who always remembered birthdays, sent handwritten cards, and wore soft linen robes on Sunday mornings. She was a fixture in my childhood, the safe adult who never raised her voice but always got you to listen. She lived in the quieter part of town now, a single-story house tucked behind hedges and overgrown hydrangeas, with a porch that creaked in the middle and wind chimes that never shut up. She greeted me barefoot, in a worn tank top and joggers, hair up in a messy clip, holding a mug that said, "Mornings are for the brave." "You've grown," she said, eyes scanning me with an openness I hadn't expected. "You haven't changed a bit," I replied, smiling. "That's generous of you," she laughed, stepping aside. "Come in. Your room's ready." I stepped inside and was hit by that familiar mix of lavender, clean cotton, and something faintly citrus. The house looked just like I remembered it. Dim but warm, soft yellow walls, stacks of books on every surface, candles that smelled like expensive soap. She showed me to the guest room, which was more or less the same. A twin bed with a deep blue quilt, a dresser with one sticky drawer, and a window that overlooked the garden. "Hope this works," she said. "I cleared some closet space, but let me know if you need more." "This is perfect," I said, dropping my bag by the bed. That first night we had dinner on the back patio. Grilled vegetables, salmon, and some white wine she claimed was cheap but tasted expensive to me. Conversation came easily. I told her about school, my canceled internship, my maybe girlfriend who turned into a maybe not. She told me about the gallery she worked at, the yoga classes she stopped going to, and how quiet the house had been lately. By the time we brought the dishes in, the sky had turned dusky violet and the air felt thick with crickets. "Sleep well," she said, touching my shoulder lightly. "Thanks," I replied, feeling her fingers linger just half a second too long. That night, I lay awake longer than I meant to, watching the ceiling fan turn lazy circles, listening to the house creak and settle. Somewhere in the hallway, a floorboard groaned. I didn't move, didn't want to. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen already halfway through her coffee, flipping through a book with a pencil between her lips. She glanced up when I entered and smiled like she'd been expecting me. "Coffee, please." I took a seat at the kitchen island while she moved effortlessly between the stove and the fridge, barefoot again, humming something soft under her breath. She slid a mug toward me and said, "I might have a few small things around the house that could use a strong back." "You mean unpaid manual labor?" "I mean a way to make yourself useful," she replied with a sly smile. We spent most of that day fixing little things. A jammed sliding door, a sagging shelf in the laundry room, a loose banister that groaned every time she came downstairs. It wasn't much, but it felt like something. Every now and then, I'd catch her watching me. Not obviously, just sidelong, like she was studying me the way you'd study a painting in different light. At one point, while I was crouched under the sink trying to deal with a leaky pipe, she leaned on the counter behind me and asked, "So what exactly are you hiding under all those quiet pauses?" I chuckled, sliding the wrench back into place. "Maybe I just don't talk as much as I used to." "Hum," she said, unconvinced. By the third night, there was a rhythm. We made dinner together, shared wine, and watched old movies on her creaky couch. The lights were always soft. Never overhead, just lamps and candles that made everything feel more close. When she laughed, her head tilted just a little to the side. When she listened, her eyes stayed on you longer than necessary. And when she touched my arm while handing me the TV remote, her fingers lingered again. Not in a way that said, by accident. In a way that said, I know you noticed. And I did. That night, when I turned in early, she walked me to the hallway, stopped just short of saying something, bit her lip, then simply said, sleep tight. But her eyes didn't match the casual tone. I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed, heart doing something weird in my chest. Was I imagining all of this? Was I reading too much into the way she looked at me, the way she brushed past me in the hallway, the way her voice dropped ever so slightly when we were alone? She wasn't family, not by blood, just Aunt Rachel. But that title didn't feel the same anymore. Nothing did. The next morning felt strangely quiet, not just in sound, but in the way the air moved through the house, like the silence had weight to it. Aunt Rachel was already outside when I woke up, watering her herbs in the back garden. She wore a faded tank top and loose shorts, her hair messily pulled back, and the sun caught on her shoulders like it had been waiting for her. I stood by the kitchen window and watched her for a moment. Not in a creepy way, at least that's what I told myself, but in the way someone watches a memory come alive in front of them. She turned slightly, caught my eye through the glass, and gave a small wave. Morning, she called when I stepped outside. Sleep okay? I asked. She nodded, still focused on the rosemary. You? Yeah. Took me a while to fall asleep. She glanced at me but didn't press. I figured. You're a thinker. I'm a worrier, I corrected. Same thing, different packaging. We ate breakfast outside. Avocado toast and poached eggs she swore she always overcooked, though they were perfect. Her phone buzzed once, but she didn't check it. Mine was face down on the table. I was thinking, she said between bites. If you're not busy later, I could use a hand in the attic. There are boxes I keep meaning to go through. Sure, I said. Need to find your high school yearbooks? She grinned. More like forgotten candles, tangled lights, and regret. By late afternoon, the two of us were in the attic with the small square window cracked just enough to let in warm air and dust. It smelled like cedar and old paper, the kind of space where time doesn't move right. She pointed to a pile of bins in the far corner. Those, I want to go through them before I convince myself to throw them out. I nodded and got to work. She sat cross-legged on a faded blanket, sorting what I handed her. Photo albums, framed art prints, an old jewelry box. Every so often, I'd feel her watching me, not in a way that made me uncomfortable, just aware. Like there was a thread between us that neither of us wanted to name, but neither of us could cut. There was a moment, brief but sharp, when I handed her a bin and our fingers touched. We both paused, just for a second, but we didn't pull away right away. She looked at me then, really looked. I don't remember breathing. Then she smiled softly and broke the contact, turning back to the open bin. By the time we came back downstairs, the sun was setting, casting long orange slashes through the hallway. My shirt clung to my back from the heat, and she fanned herself dramatically with a stack of old papers. I owe you dinner, she said. You don't owe me anything. Too bad, she said. I'm making pasta. In the kitchen, we moved like we'd done it before. Her at the stove, me chopping vegetables, passing things back and forth without needing to ask. She played a playlist from her phone. Soft, acoustic, like the kind of music you only hear late at night or during long drives when no one's talking. We ate on the couch again, knees close, the air cooler now. Her foot brushed mine under the blanket. She didn't move it. Neither did I. The conversation drifted: art, music, why she stopped painting, the neighbor's awful wind chimes. I told her about a professor I hated, about a friend I missed more than I expected to. And then she said something that caught me off guard. "You've always felt older than you are." I looked at her. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Well, you've always felt younger than you act. That made her laugh. I'll take it, she said. There was a pause. Not awkward, just open. Seriously, she added, eyes on her wineglass. You're different now, not just older. You carry yourself differently. I didn't know what to say to that. She set her glass down, looked at me. It's weird sometimes, seeing someone grow up right in front of you and realizing you missed the moment it happened. Our eyes met. There it was again, that pull, that unspoken tension stretching between the cushions and the quiet. I stood up, maybe too fast. "I'm gonna head to bed," I said, voice rougher than I meant. She didn't stop me, just nodded. "Sleep well," she said, but something in her tone felt unfinished. As I walked down the hallway, I felt her eyes on my back. I didn't look. In my room, I sat on the bed for a long time. Lights off, window cracked open, the hum of cicadas in the dark. I kept thinking about her voice, her hand brushing mine, the way she looked at me in the attic. Something was changing, or maybe it had already changed, and we were both just pretending it hadn't. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, and whispered to the empty room, "What the hell is happening?" I didn't expect an answer, but the next night would give me one anyway. It was nearly midnight when I heard her footsteps in the hallway. I hadn't been sleeping. I'd been lying in bed for over an hour, the book I tried to read now lying face down on the blanket beside me, the bedside lamp casting a soft, amber glow across the room. Outside, the crickets had quieted. The house felt suspended, like it was waiting for something. The steps paused outside my door. My chest tightened. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe she'd gone to the bathroom or was getting tea. But then the handle turned, slow, deliberate, and the door opened just enough for her to slip through. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She stepped into the room like she had a reason to be there. I sat up, pushing the book aside, trying to find my voice. "Aunt Rachel?" She didn't answer at first, just walked toward the edge of the bed and sat down. The mattress dipped slightly under her weight. She was wearing a long, charcoal gray t-shirt that reached her mid-thigh, loose around the shoulders but hugging her frame in places that made it hard to keep my eyes where they should have been. Her hair was slightly damp, like she'd just showered, and her legs were bare, folded under her. She looked at me, not with surprise, not with apology, with intent. "I couldn't sleep," she said softly, cleared my throat. "Me neither." A small silence settled between us, but it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't awkward either. It was thick, alive. "I was in the laundry room," she continued, her fingers playing with a crease in the blanket. "Looking for a blanket I thought I'd stored in here." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure if I believed her. She turned her gaze to me, calm, measured. "You've been acting strange," she said, voice low. "Ever since you got here." My stomach twisted. "Strange how?" "Like you're carrying something, like you're trying not to say something." I let out a nervous breath, trying to laugh it off. "Maybe I'm just tired." "Maybe," she echoed. Then, after a pause, "But maybe not." I looked at her, and that's when it happened. She leaned in slightly, her voice just above a whisper, her eyes locked on mine. "Show me what you're hiding." My pulse skipped, then hammered. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I wasn't even sure what I was supposed to say, what she meant, or what I wanted it to mean. She smiled faintly, knowingly, as if my silence was all the confirmation she needed. I see the way you look at me, she said. You think I haven't noticed? I looked down, suddenly very aware of how warm the room felt. She reached forward, gently placed her hand on my knee. Not in a teasing way, not even seductive, just present, firm. I don't want you to lie to me, she said. Not here. Not tonight. I'm not. I started, but stopped myself, because I had been pretending for days now, pretending I didn't feel what I felt, that I didn't notice the way her robe slipped just a little lower when she leaned over the table, the way she lingered when handing me a mug, the way her eyes sometimes stayed on me a moment longer than they should have. You're not a kid anymore, she said quietly, and I'm not just Aunt Rachel. Not really. I looked up at her, the way she was sitting calm, composed, watching me with that patient, unreadable expression. It felt like she was holding open a door and daring me to step through it. But the space between us still held everything unsaid. What do you want me to say? I asked finally. I want you to be honest, she said. Just this once. With me. And with yourself. I hesitated. My chest felt too full, my hands too still. I think about you, I said, the words sounding foreign in my own voice. More than I should. Her breath hitched, but she didn't pull away. Since when? I swallowed. Since I got here. Maybe even before. She nodded slowly, her fingers tracing a line along the seam of the blanket. Good, she said softly. Then I'm not crazy. I looked at her, heart pounding. You've felt it too? Of course I have, she whispered. You think I came in here by accident? The room seemed to shrink around us. Everything else, the books, the light, the bed, the house, faded. Only she remained. Her hand moved, just slightly, to rest atop mine. I don't know what this is, I said. I don't know if it's wrong. Then don't name it, she replied. Not yet. Let it be what it is. We sat like that, her hand on mine, the room still, the moment holding its breath. I didn't come in here to make things harder, she added after a beat. But I couldn't keep pretending either. I don't want you to, I said. She smiled again, soft but full of something deeper. Then don't pretend with me either. Another pause, another breath, and then, without another word, she stood up. She adjusted the hem of her shirt, glanced at me once more, and whispered, Good night. I nodded, unable to speak. As she turned to go, I called her name. Not loud, just enough to make her stop. She looked back over her shoulder. I'm not hiding anymore, I said. She held my gaze. A small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at her lips. I know, she said. Then she closed the door behind her, quietly, like a secret, and left me sitting in the silence she'd lit on fire. I woke up to the sound of birds and the faint scent of coffee. The sunlight had already crept halfway across the room, painting soft golden lines across the blanket. For a moment I didn't move. My body was still heavy, my mind slower than usual, as if it didn't quite trust the memory of the night before. Had she really said that? Had I? It all felt too surreal and yet completely real. The weight of her hand on mine, the way her voice dropped, the way she looked at me like she wasn't just seeing me now, but had been for some time. I sat up, ran a hand through my hair, and stared at the door she'd quietly closed behind her hours earlier. I didn't know what I was expecting when I walked into the kitchen. Awkwardness, distance, her avoiding eye contact, maybe pretending none of it happened. But what I got was the same thing I always did. She was there, barefoot, calm, stirring sugar into her tea like it was any other morning. Except it wasn't. She looked up when I entered. Morning. I nodded. Morning. She poured coffee into the mug already waiting for me, like she knew I'd be up soon. like routine hadn't been shattered the night before. I sat down at the table, watching her move around the kitchen with practiced ease. The silence wasn't awkward. It was intentional, heavy but not crushing, like both of us were waiting to see who would speak first. She slid the mug toward me and leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "Sleep okay?" she asked. I gave a half smile. "Eventually." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "Me too." I took a sip of coffee, letting the bitterness ground me. After a minute, she said, "I've been thinking." Here it comes, I thought. "That maybe this doesn't have to be anything," she continued. "Not yet. Not defined. Just something acknowledged." I looked at her. "You mean last night?" She met my gaze. "I mean everything leading up to last night. The way we've been dancing around something neither of us wanted to name. I'm not asking for decisions or definitions. I just want honesty. I wasn't lying to you." "I know," she said. "That's why I came in." I stared down into my coffee, watching the steam swirl. "And now, that's up to us." A long pause stretched between us, the kind that could only exist between two people who had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. She finally came around the table and sat across from me. No smile this time, just steady, open eyes. "I meant what I said," she said, "about not wanting to pretend anymore." "I meant it too," I replied. She looked relieved, but also more serious now. "This isn't easy for me," she admitted. "I keep wondering if it's just the silence in the house, the closeness. But it's not. It's you. And it's been you for a while." I didn't expect the heat that rose to my face, or the way my hands tensed slightly around the mug. "I keep thinking about what happens next," I said. "What this means." She reached across the table, resting her hand on mine again. "We don't have to know what it means yet. We just have to stop pretending it's not real." I nodded slowly. That was something I could hold on to. The rest of the day unfolded like any other, but with a new current under the surface. We went grocery shopping. We cleaned out the fridge. She asked me to help trim the rose bushes in the backyard. Normal things, small things, but every time we brushed past each other, every glance that lingered, every pause that stretched half a second longer than it should, it all pulsed with the memory of that moment. That night, we sat on the couch again, this time without wine, without a movie playing. Just soft jazz from the speaker and the quiet hum of the fan above. She curled one leg under herself and leaned back, her eyes occasionally flicking toward me. "I used to think I had it all figured out," she said. "Life, boundaries," she said, smiling faintly. "But then you walked back into this house, and everything I thought I knew started to shift. Is that a good thing?" She thought about it. "It's honest, and that's more important." I looked at her hand resting on the arm of the couch. She didn't move it when my fingers brushed against hers. She didn't pull away when I let them stay there. Instead, she turned her hand over, palm up, inviting. I laced my fingers with hers. The music kept playing. No one said anything else for a long time, and somehow, the silence between us felt louder than any words ever could.